Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be working on this PlayStation 5 which I bought off Joey from Joey Does Tech. Joey is another repair technician and also a YouTuber. He's a very good friend of mine and he basically bought this PlayStation 5 off eBay himself for £160. He managed to get it to turn on when he first bought it. I've seen the video before he's released it. But he managed to get the console to turn on, he managed to play a game of Fortnite, and then when he rebooted it, it went to no power. So he didn't really feel comfortable working on it, just given the fact that, number one, he didn't have a power supply, so just in case it's a power supply issue, he didn't have one for this particular console. And number two, he thought it was a little bit too intermittent for him to work on. But obviously, I like a challenge, so I ended up buying it off him for £130. I'll leave a link to Joey's channel in the top pinned comment. Highly recommend going and checking him out. He's a great guy. And yeah, anyway, with that being said, my name's Dakota. I'm an electronics technician. I mainly work on games consoles, but I do work on other stuff too. So if that's the sort of stuff you're into, be sure to get subscribed and turn on the bell notifications. That way you don't miss any future videos. If you do want to support me, you can follow me on Twitch. You can become a Twitch Prime subscriber by linking an Amazon Prime account to Twitch and then obviously subscribing to my channel completely free. It does massively help me out, but it doesn't cost you anything if you've got an Amazon Prime account. And also, I'm on Patreon. These videos get released early on Patreon, so if you want to support me over there, buy me a cup of coffee and get early access to the videos on that as well. So with that being said, let's get into today's repair. This video probably still would have been here without today's sponsor, but hey, it's time to show something, right? So here goes. Here at the Dakota Productions, we love nothing more than to take as much money from you, the viewer, as we possibly can. Which is why we're proud to talk to you about consolefix.shop. A great place for you to spend your hard-earned cash. I mean, yeah, fair enough. You get parts and supplies that help you fix things, but you've got to give me some money in return. Nothing in life's free, and if you pay me for it, you might appreciate it more. Or not. Hey, I'm not judging. With that being said, we do have some pretty cool stuff on the shelves, including power supplies, HDMI ports, charging chips, MOSFETs, and whatever else you can think of that'll give you the illusion that you're getting a good deal. So head on over to the online store by clicking on the link in the video description, and if there's one thing I can guarantee, is that there will be a way for me to take your money. Console Fix, your friendly money grabbing YouTuber. Okay, so like I said, this had no power when it got to me. So as you can see, this is plugged in right now and I get no power, but in about 10 seconds it will try and beep, just like that, but obviously no blue light or anything like that. And then in around about 30 seconds it'll try and beep again. So yeah, quite interesting. Hopefully we can get to the bottom of it and get it sorted out. I do believe that this has also got a disk drive issue as well, so if we get this working we're going to have to sort that out. But for now, we're just going to try and fix an no power issue. As you might have heard there was another beep there, and then it won't try and turn on for about another 30 seconds. That's a pretty common thing on the PlayStation 5, to be honest. And normally it's a shorty capacitor, to be honest with you. I don't think this is going to be a power supply issue like he thought it could be. But, you know, I'm certainly a lot more experienced than most people when it comes to the PlayStation 5. I've worked on hundreds upon hundreds of these. I've lost count, to be honest. You know, I've done a lot of research on them. I've spent a lot of time working on this sort of stuff. So, yeah, when it comes to issues like this, I can usually identify them pretty quickly. But that being said, nothing is guaranteed. So we may be able to fix it, we may not. I do know this is a 1200 series board, so it's the EDM 03 something. I think it's the 03 on this one. Can't remember 100%, but hey ho. But you know what? I mean, £130 for a PS5. Yes, it's faulty, obviously, but you know, just this fan alone, like these fans are hard to come across because they're slightly different to the 1200, to the 1100 and 1000 series. The cable's slightly longer, so you can't use a standard fan in these. Same as the power supply. The power supplies are not the same either. They're slightly different to the older revisions. So this is the one revision, the last revision. Sorry, I will get my words out. This is the last revision before the Slim. So when these first came out, these 1200 series, I actually anticipated them going for a slim before it was announced, because obviously the size of the board changed significantly. So the size of the board before come to around about here, so there was like 20% reduction or something. Wow, what is going on with that light? I am very sorry about that. Not really a lot I can do about that. That's the auto white balance and stuff on my camera acting up again. I've had quite a bit of a game getting this recording going. OBS, I updated it the other day, and now it's just crashing every single time, which is really, really annoying. Right, anyway, never update software, it's designed to break things. But yeah, that's beeping again, obviously. And then, like I said, it won't beep for about 30 seconds or so. There you go, it just beeped again. So I was pressing that power button constantly then. It looks to me like Joey may have connected up UART on this. There's three solder pads. I can't remember, it's been a few days since I watched the video. He sent it me early. You know, when I actually agreed to buy it, he sent me, sorry, Monday, so 2 days ago, he sent me a link to the video. And I watched the video, but obviously I didn't clock on to what actually happened with UART. But to be honest, I don't think UART is going to be really any use here, because it looks like the safe bridge isn't fully turning on this. So I'm going to use a few other different methods for trying to find the fault on this. I may as well, actually no, I'll leave that plugged in. There is a reason I do leave them plugged in, and that's because that way then I can just jump straight into checking the voltage rails to see what voltage rails are present. I'm going to skip through the rest of this though instead of waffling on. Alright, so we're pretty much inside the console here. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to test the voltage rails and just see what I can find. See if there's anything that stands out to me. So I'm going to go into voltage mode on my multimeter. I'm going to check F7001 just here. We get 5 volts on both sides of that fuse, so that the 5 volt circuit there isn't faulty. We've got a circuit here which is actually missing, but we should get 5 volts on this test pad. So is it this test pad or is it that one? Somewhere here we should get 5 volts. I think it may be short. Ah, there it is, 5 volts. Never mind, it's not. I was testing ground. Ha! Right, 5 volts there, so we are getting 5 volts. So F7002 is fine, because these pads here are actually connected directly to the other side of the board where F7002 is, and F7002 is a 5 volt to 1.8 volt line. So that's absolutely fine, that's nothing to worry about. What about just here? We're getting nothing there, and that is actually nulling my leads. So let me show you what I mean. So if we look at my multimeter here, it's just off to the top. If I touch ground, I'm touching ground with the black probe, but if I touch ground with the red probe at the same time, you'll see that it's dropping the voltage right down to 0. If I test around here, this is a 5 volt line. If I test around here, you'll see it's doing exactly the same on both sides of that capacitor. So that area could be short, so we could have a signature failure here. There's not really much I can test on this board, on the EDM03X boards. They're a bit of a pain in the backside, to be honest. But I'm going to get the board out and then I'll do some more tests on the other side. I can pop under the microscope then and test it. Alright, so there's the screws all fully out, heatsinks off, etc. Let's get rid of that, and we can pop the board out. There we go. Liquid metal's absolutely fine. So what I want to do, I don't think this is going to be a power supply issue, and the reason for that is because it does beep every 30 seconds, which is why I'm not going straight for the power supply. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop under the microscope now, and I'm going to test some of the common areas. I'm going to focus on the 5-volt rails though. So this is a 90061 board, so it's not the 69, which is a bit of a shame because these boards are, well, the 69 south bridge is pretty difficult to come by, so if I couldn't fix this I'd have a spare south bridge. But never mind. So this is the F7002 area I was referring to. So I'm going to go into continuity mode on my multimeter. So in continuity mode, if I complete a circuit, I will get a beep on the multimeter, which means that if it's short to ground, so for example, if I touch there, I'll get my words out. If I touch there and then touch ground somewhere else, you'll see that it does beep, right? So what that'll do is, if I've got a short to ground, it's going to beep and it's going to give me an audible signal as to having a short. So I can test some different areas and try and find a short. And the same with fuses. What I can do is I can test the fuse, and if it beeps, then I know the fuse is good. Which that one is good, so that's fine. So next I'm going to focus on this dialogue area just here. I'll test the fuse first. Fuse is good. And let's check for a short on this circuit, or anywhere around here. Okay, I'm not finding a short. This is another 5-volt circuit just here. That's not short. Alright. We've got a F7502 just here. This is another 5-volt rail. That's good. Well, the fuse is good at least. Not short either. Okay. We've got another 3219 here. This is another 5-volt circuit. So we've got quite a few different 5-volt rails here, but the reason I'm going for the 5-volt rails is because it's a common thing where you get a short on the 5-volt rail and you'll get that beep every 30 seconds. So I'll try and focus more on the 5-volt areas when I'm getting this kind of an issue. Okay, so I'm not getting any signs of a short yet. What about on USB? No, no shorts on front USB. I'm kind of leaning towards a south bridge failure here, to be honest. Is that a crack? Or is it a scratch? I think it's a scratch. Alright. Yeah, so I'm kind of leaning towards a south bridge failure on this. Okay. No shorts on the HDMI encoder. So let's have a look around here. So this is a magnetics module. If we get a short on here, we've definitely got a bad south bridge. That is not the case here. Let's just continue to hunt then. So let's check the rear USB ports. No, nothing. How about Wi-Fi? Nothing. Okay. Alright. So what about at the back here by the HDMI encoder then? So we've got a 5-volt line there. That tricked me for a second there. Nearly got me. And a 3.3 volt, nothing. So we're not getting any signs of shorts here, which is quite strange, really. Alright, so the next step for me then is going to be to check my boot sequence. So basically, I'm going to put 12 volts into this from the power supply. I know that the 12 volt line on here isn't short because it basically gives me 5 volts and stuff, and if it was short then it wouldn't give me any sub rails. So I'm going to give it 12 volts and I'm going to check my boot sequence. So basically when you apply 12 volts to this, it's supposed to slowly climb up to around about 300 milliamps and then drop back down to around 8 milliamps, and then it's supposed to hold there. And by looking at the boot sequence on the bench power supply, it can give us a general indication of as to what's going on sometimes. Or sometimes we might detect heat in it as well. So we get 322 milliamps of current draw. That's actually a little bit high. But we get 300 milliamps current draw. And it looks to me like the safe bridge is getting warm. Alright, so here I've got the thermal camera. This is a Infrared P2 Pro, and you can see how good this is. I mean, if it can make me look good, then it can make anyone look good, right? That's just proof right there. But anyway, so this is the Infrared P2 Pro. I highly recommend you get one of these if you do repairs on a regular basis. I'll leave a link to this in the top pinned comment. I do get a little bit of commission if you do buy it from my link as well, so it does help the channel out. And this is by far the best value for money thermal camera you can buy. It's fairly high resolution, it works on the PC, etc, etc, and yeah, it's just really, really good. So yeah, I'm going to give this 12 volts and see if we pick anything up in terms of heat. Okay, so the SSD controller turned on, that is normal. And we've got a hotspot on the safe bridge there, so that's not normal. So a lot of people would think that this heat spot here will be the indicator, but no, it's not. There's a couple of reasons. Number one is because the SSD controller, so this chip here, that getting warm is normal. You know, it's supposed to get warm. It's got an exposed die on it, and basically you're going to see the heat. It's not that hot. I mean, I can check the temperature, so I can see it on the PC. You just have to take my word for it. But the maximum temperature right now on the SSD controller is 37 degrees Celsius. Let's have a look at the safe bridge now. Let's see what temperature this gets up to. Yeah, 34-ish. Okay, so that's not normal. So even though that's not hot, it's still not normal, right? We've got a very, very obvious heat spot there. If I put the macro lens on, we can zoom right in on this and see this pretty darn close up. So this is so good you can read the writing on the board. You know, it's that good. If I inject voltage again there, yeah, you can see that. Look at that. But that is a very, very obvious heat spot on that safe bridge there. 35 degrees, yeah, 35.2. But it's a very, very obvious hot spot right in the middle of the safe bridge, and that's not normal at all. So the safe bridge on these is responsible for some of the power rails as well as handling some of the input and output devices on the console, so such as the HDMI negotiation. Well, I think it handles the Ethernet, USB ports. I mean, it handles power for the USB ports. It doesn't handle the data. That goes directly to the APU because Sony in their infinite wisdom thinks it's smart to have direct lines to the APU. But hey ho. But yeah, the APU getting warm isn't normal. It should get warm, but it shouldn't hang. It shouldn't stay warm. And I know 35 degrees Celsius isn't a lot, and I know the SSD controller was getting warmer, but the SSD controller naturally runs hot anyway. So, in my experience, it's not the SSD controller. Plus the fact that it's getting above 250 milliamps tells me that it's getting past that stage of the boot up sequence. It's just hanging at the end. So that's telling me that there's something wrong with this safe bridge. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this safe bridge and I'm going to replace it. And to replace it, I'm going to need to take one from a donor board and re-ball it. So that's always fun. But in my experience, the issue here, based on the symptoms, is the safe bridge. I've got my hot air at 440 degrees Celsius. That's at 40% airflow. There we go, so there's the old safe bridge removed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tin this area with some leaded solder. This is Kester 6337. And I'm going to remove all of this solder so we've got some nice clean pads to work with. So we add leaded solder just to lower the melting temperature and allow us to wick away the old lead-free solder, which leaded solder melts at around about 183 degrees Celsius. Leaded solder is around about 183 degrees Celsius. Lead-free melts at around about 217. So obviously by adding some leaded solder to the mix, we reduce that temperature by around about 15 degrees Celsius, give or take. Maybe more. Maybe closer to 25 degrees Celsius. I don't know. I'm not good at maths. But yeah, we're just going to replace all of these pads, or replace the solder on all of these pads. Make sure that we get every single pad, even if it looks like there's no solder on them. We don't want to end up tearing pads. I got my iron at 400 degrees. That's Celsius, by the way, because we use normal metric system in the UK. But yeah, 400 degrees Celsius on my iron. And then I'm going to use some good old goot wick, which you can buy from consolefix.shop. It looks like we've got some solder mask exposed, or rather some traces exposed on this as we're wicking it away. You can't really help that sometimes. It's just going to be a case of having to restore the solder mask on there, or the conformal coating rather. I'm going to put some solder mask on there to replace it. I'm just going to clean this up with some IPA. I do have a pad there which didn't quite clean up. Alright, so yeah, we've got a few exposed traces and we're going to need to basically re-protect those. So I'm going to grab some solder mask. This is UVH 900, which I'm going to use. I'll just drop some off to the side. And that is actually too much, but never mind. Just get rid of a bit of that. In fact, I'll get rid of all of it and I'll just put some more down. Don't want it covering the pads. Just pop some off to the side there. And then what I'm going to do is just recover all of these pads that have ended up exposed, and that'll make sure that we don't end up with solder overspill. This one here honestly isn't that important, it's just a ground. We do actually have a pretty oxidised pad there. I'll deal with that in a minute. So all of these pads which you can see are exposed, you know, you've got some a little bit of tadpoling going on. I call it tadpoling because it looks like a tadpole. All of these pads which have got exposed traces, we need to cover them. I'll just gather up a little bit of solder mask and just recoat them. So there wasn't much to deal with there really, but now what I'm going to do is just cure this using some UV light. And I can add a bit of heat to it just to help the curing process and make it cure faster. It cures faster and a lot harder as well, so I'll just use a little bit of heat just to assist it. And also then that's going to remelt all of the flux that's on there and allow me to clean it all up fully. So we've got a nice clean board to work with. And there we go, so that's all of that done. What I want to do though is just sort out these couple of pads which are not quite right. So we've got two pads just there which I'm not happy with. So I'm just going to re-tin those pads and then wick it away again. I'm actually a lot happy with it. Oh, whoops, you can't even see. Never mind. I'm a lot happier with that right now, so that'll do for now. And I've got a donor board just here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this chip off here. And if you need any of these chips, by the way, pretty much any chip for the PS5, you can visit the website, consolefix.shop. You get pretty much all of them that you need off there. That is my online store, and I basically buy PS5 boards, Xbox boards, all of that sort of stuff. I strip them down and I reball the chips and stuff off them. Okay, so here's the chip that I'm going to be reballing. I'm going to add some leady solder to this as well. And we actually have some oxidized pads on here, so I'm going to tin these, and any pads that don't tin I can scrape with the iron. Okay, I'm going to wick this away, and the reason for that is because it's going to allow me to, number one, scrape the pads a little bit and remove some of the oxidation, but number two, is going to allow me to see the pads. So you see this pad right here, this one is becoming a little bit shinier. I'm not going to focus too much on the oxidized pads on the first pass. I'll clean up the flux, put some fresh flux down, and then I'll focus on retinning all of those pads. Okay, so that's nice and clean, apart from the few oxidized pads. So I'll just give it a scrub, get rid of that flux. Okay, and so now I can focus on those oxidized pads. So if I hold it on an angle, I should be able to see them better. So we've got a few across here. I'll give those a bit of a scrape with the tweezers. I'll remove some of the oxidation. Okay, and now if I retin these now, that should take solder. They're not happy, these pads. They're really not happy. There we go. So I'm just making sure all of these oxidized pads are actually able to take solder, because otherwise the solder balls are not going to stick to it. It seems okay now. But if I just give this all a scrape again with the solder wick now, it's going to remove any remaining oxidation from it. But I didn't clean my tip first because I wanted the solder to transfer over to the wick, because that way then it's going to basically partially tin all of the pads as I'm going across it with the solder braid. Solder braid, solder wick, same thing. Copper braid. Okay, so there's that. I can move the iron across the wick a little bit. Just give it another pass. And that is nice and clean. So that's the end goal, really. Trying to get the pads all nice and clean, all nice and shiny. Make sure that we've got no oxidation and no dirt and grime on it, because it doesn't come perfectly clean when you remove it from the board. It never will. But that seems okay now. Yes, there's a couple of exposed traces, but it doesn't matter too much on the chip itself, because we're going to be using solder balls and a stencil. So that's all nice and clean. It's ready to go. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of flux. Just spread that around. Make sure we haven't got any big blobs there. And then if I use my stencil and just line this up, just like that, perfect. Now I can drop solder balls onto it. Although, we do have a few bits of crap on here. There we go. So I would usually use the holder, but at the minute I just can't find it. So I'm not going to waste time hunting. I'm just going to do it without the holder. It's pretty much the same process anyway. Just got to make sure I don't knock the stencil. So I'm going to drop some solder balls on there. I've normally got a dedicated holder for this chip, but I can do it without. It's not a problem. Just gently moving the solder balls across. Make sure I get one in every hole. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to hold the stencil still while I gather up these remaining solder balls. Don't want to have those blowing around. There are solder balls on the desk under the stencil, but they won't get to the actual chip. I'm also going to keep it held down just to stop it from warping and moving around as well. Just going to flow these down. There we go. I've actually got a stray solder ball there, but it's fine. And to help release it, I'm going to spray it with IPA. That'll also keep my stencil clean. Okay, I've got a solder ball which didn't stick, at least one. Just one. Okay, cool. So one solder ball not sticking, that's not a major issue. I'm just going to clean up. So get rid of any flux there. Okay. So now that I've got rid of the flux, I'm just going to dry up the IPA, just like that. And then I'll just need one solder ball putting on manually. So I'll grab one solder ball, or maybe two, because these are teeny tiny. I'll just drop one in place there. And I'm going to flow this down. Nope, didn't work. Didn't want to stick. Okay, it's not sticking, so what I'll do is just scrape back a little bit on the pad itself. Just give it somewhere for that solder to bite to. So it's kind of like keying when you're plastering a wall. You know, it needs somewhere to bite to. There we go. Right, that should stick now, realistically. I'm going to knock my airflow down though. I'll knock it down to 1%. Just to stop it blowing the solder board off, because I've got no flux there. I'm just looking for that to flow and sit down onto the pad. There we go. I've just saw that move. So now I can add flux to it. Okay. Increase my airflow to 20%. Reflow all of those. Excellent. That's all done. And those balls are nice and shiny. And that is perfect. Make sure this goes in the correct orientation. And there's flux on the bottom of the chip, so I don't need any flux right now on the motherboard itself. The flux on the chip will flow down. Okay, and now I'm going to give this 2 or 3 minutes just to cool down. I'm not going to touch it. Alright, so it's been about 10 minutes. I've got the thermal camera set back up here. I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to inject voltage and just see if we get any change. If we don't get any change, I'm going to be continuing this tomorrow because it is 3:28 AM right now. So I'll just pop one probe on ground, get my 12 volt rail. Let's remove the macro lens there and injecting. And okay, it is dropping down, but that seemed to jump up a little bit quick for my liking. I mean, I haven't worked on too many 1200 series boards, so maybe it does jump up a little bit quicker on the 1200s, but it jumped up a little bit too quick for my liking. But it does obviously drop back down a lot faster. So we'll see. Let's see if it wants to turn on for us. See if we've made any progress, shall we? I won't bother with the heatsink or anything like that at the minute. I'll just plug it all in and let's see what happens. Let's give it 12 volts. Well, let's give it the power supply, shall we? And we turn on. Yeah, so I guess it does boot up a little bit quicker. There we go. Okay, so let's just pop on the heatsink then. That is good. This is going to need a full stress test because the issue with this was that it was turning on for Joey, and then obviously when Joey rebooted it, it didn't turn on. But I've had this plugged in several times. Yeah, I know. It's overheating. I've had this plugged in several times on the in the house, and obviously it's not turned on once for me. This is the first time I've got it to turn on, and you know, the fact that I've replaced a safe bridge after thinking it was a safe bridge all along, you know, it would make sense that it was actually the safe bridge and that, you know, it's going to work fine now. How Joey got it to turn on and why it failed afterwards, I'll never know, but, you know, it is what it is, I guess. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop everything, not together, but together enough to be able to give it a full test. Because what I want to do is I want to obviously give it a full test, but I don't want to screw anything back down because, well, Sony in their infinite wisdom think it's okay to put 50-something screws in these. I don't actually know how many are in this 1200, but yeah, it's not exactly a quick process to be assembling and disassembling the console, is it? What I'll do is I'll pop on the disk drive, I'll pop the top case over it, and then that way I can test everything. I'm not going to give it a full stress test tonight. I just want to see if it boots up and turns on. And obviously, you know, make sure it doesn't crash and shut down. Or rather, crash and shut down immediately. I don't want it to crash and shut down immediately. But at the same time, I don't want to test it all tonight because it's late. And I think it's too late to test it. But at least like this, we can make sure it's not going to overheat on us. I haven't sorted out the liquid metal, and I also haven't cleaned up the flux off the board. But that'll all get done later on. I'll give it a full service and stuff off camera. I always do. Let's just have a look now. Let's see if it turns on. It does. Okay, good. That is good. So let's test the display, shall we? And I believe actually that I'll probably be able to get this displaying on the capture card because Joey used this, and usually Joey disables HDCP, so this is probably going to display on the capture card. No, it's not. It's not displaying on the capture card. Okay. Well, looks like you've got to deal with this ugly mush. Sorry. It's not my fault. Blame the PlayStation. Don't blame me. Right, let's see if it displays on the TV. Yeah, it does. I can hear the sound, and yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's been factory reset. Shh. No.
Schließe deinen Controller mit dem USB-Kabel an die Konsole an und drücke die PS-Taste.
No. In Spanish. Don't know what language that was. Anyway, that's working. Shut up. Stupid TV. Anyway, that is working. I do need to give it a full stress test, so I'm going to run this through the setup and stuff like that. But I'm not doing that tonight. It is 3:35 AM right now, and I really don't want to be running through setup, and I really don't want to be downloading and installing games. Well, actually, I will run through the setup tonight, and then I'll start downloading Fortnite and a few other games so I can give it a full stress test. But oh, hang on a minute. I've just shut the TV off. The console shut down on me. Is it going to turn on when I turn the TV on? Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought it had. I thought it had just broken again, but no. Yeah. So I'm going to run through the setup, and obviously I'll get all that done. But I'm not going to give it a full stress test tonight. I'll do that tomorrow. So yeah, until tomorrow, I guess. All right. It's the same day, but it's the next morning. It was after 3 AM when I went to bed. Never mind. So it is 11:41. So yeah, not even that long really. But I have installed Fortnite. Well, near enough installed it. I've got it running on the Ethernet. So I did test Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is working, but I wanted to plug it into the Ethernet just to download the games because obviously it's quicker. You know, I can't get the full 900 meg on Wi-Fi. So yeah. It's installing Fortnite now, and basically that seems to be going okay. But there is an issue, which Joey did mention, but there is an issue with the disk drive. It's not taking a disk, so we're going to need to rebuild that disk drive in a minute. But everything else seems to be working fine. It's logging into my account. It's not banned or anything like that. And yeah, I'm happy with it. But obviously, I need to fix that disk drive issue before I can call this good and obviously sell it. So I'll show you what's happening with that. So I've got a PS5 game here, Werewolf, and if I try and insert that disc, can you hear that? And it's spitting the disc out trying to get it in, but yeah. So I'm going to need to obviously resolve that. Fortnite has just launched, which means that is working, or it appears to be, and it is getting pretty warm at the minute as well. So obviously, yeah, actually that's just told me that the PS5 is too hot. So it's just given me the warning that the PS5 is too hot. So obviously I need to sort that out. I'm going to need to sort the liquid metal out and stuff like that. So yeah, a few things to do on it. It does look like this disk drive has been opened before, and I don't think it was by Joey. So these are pretty awkward to actually get to. The best thing to do with these is to remove these 4 screws here. That screw is actually chewed. Someone has been working on this disk drive. Like I said, I don't think it's Joey that's worked on it, but Joey has just told me that this has come from a very specific seller, and that seller is known for throwing scrap parts into the consoles that he sells. So that's not good. And unfortunately, last time I doxed the guy on YouTube, well, I didn't dox him, I just gave his eBay username. He reported me to eBay. Sorry, to YouTube. Alright, so yeah, the best thing to do is just to take those screws out, and then that way we could get to the entire disk drive rather than twisting and turning to try and get to it. We're going to unplug all of this, and we're going to have a look at, first of all, the rollers, which do appear damaged. Okay, I've got to be careful here. I don't want to. Well, I don't want to remove the disk drive board, to be honest. Just can't be bothered. Okay. So it's not going to be anything to do with this here. So the laser, in theory, should be fine. If anything, it's going to be to do with either the rollers, these cogs here, or this plate here. So let me just inspect the cogs under the microscope and just make sure we haven't got any damage to the cogs. Okay, so we don't appear to have, not on face value. I can't really forcibly turn these. We don't appear to have any damage to the cogs. Although that one is... Oh no, it's not too bad. I mean, yeah, face value, the cogs seem okay. Cogs, gears, whatever you want to call them. So let's have a closer look at these then. They are scratched. I mean, these things are pretty sensitive in terms of, you know, whether they work when they're damaged or not. They are a bit scratched up. Yeah, you see that? What about this one? Yeah, again, it's not in the best condition. It's a bit scratched and scuffed, isn't it? Alright, so I'm going to take some rollers out of this disk drive here then. Unfortunately, I don't have any brand new rollers. Might help if I screwed this back down, hadn't it? So this seems all good. This mechanism here seems to be working fine. But that is just for basically pulling in the laser, pulling in the disk drive and locking it towards the laser. So it's not really a concern. I'm just hoping I haven't got to replace the disk drive because that's not cheap. It will basically eat all of my profits if I do have to. So I'm hoping I can just refurb this one fairly cheaply. You know, the rollers really don't cost a lot. So if I can replace the rollers and call it good, then I'm happy. Alright, so that lines itself up, basically. Right, okay, there we go. So that disk drive's back together. Like I said, I'm not worried about the overheating immediately. That'll all get serviced off camera anyway. So, you know, it'll all get cleaned out fully. I'll make sure that everything's working and stuff like that. I'll just need the disk drive to be working, obviously, because that is a big part of the console. So hopefully it's working now. I don't think I've got a 1200 series disk drive. Actually, I have. I've got one brand new. But I'll say brand new. I bought a 1200 series console. Ended up selling the motherboard off it because I only bought it for a teardown. Sold the motherboard and the disk drive daughter board. And obviously, after that, I didn't do anything with the disk drive. So I have got one brand new, but I'd really rather not use that, to be honest. Not on this job, anyway. Haha, new rollers fixed it. That's fine. So let's just turn it on and make sure that it actually reads a disc. I've obviously got to plug in the HDMI though, because I forgot. Let's just make sure it's actually reading my disc, shall we? And then I can give it a full test with the game and stuff. But yeah, that takes that disk drive, that takes that disc in and sucks it out smooth as a baby's bum. So happy days. Oi. Hate this TV. Changes source on me for no reason. Unreadable disc. Of course it is. Just going to do the old shirt wipe disc trick thing. Hey, there we go. Boom. Shirt wipe disc thing worked. Queued for copy. Okay. So, that is installing. 10 gigs not bad, actually. I've never used this game for a test game. 10 gigs not bad. Okay, we're connected to internet through Wi-Fi now. Probably going to overheat on me because I haven't serviced it yet, so yeah. But Joey did test a game on this. You know, it's loading a game. It's not like it's actually crashing. I am going to drop the fan on the top of it. Just as I plug the fan in. Alright, I'm going to service it. Just as I plugged the fan in, it decided, no, I'm going to overheat on you. I'm going to ramp up your fan, and then I'm going to tell you that I'm too hot, because PS5, eh? These things run way too hot for my liking. Never mind. Right, okay, it's all back together, and the console's turning on. Everything seems to be absolutely fine. I think I'm going to keep this for myself, because I sold my PS5 Slim a couple of weeks ago. Mainly because I didn't use it, but, I mean, for £130, you know, I sold my PS5 Slim, which I actually bought off Joey Does Tech, by the way. Sold it for a profit, which was a winner. So I bought a PS5 Slim off Joey. I ended up selling that because I didn't use it and my son broke the TV. But it'd be nice to have one in the new workshop when I, you know, when I get the new workshop up and running. So, yeah. Let's just have a look at the disk drive now. Yep, that seems absolutely fine. Perfect. The beep is a little bit quiet, but that's because I've just had isopropyl alcohol around the speaker when I was cleaning out the safe bridge, the flux from around the safe bridge. So it should be fine. And, you know, to be honest, it doesn't really bother me as long as it turns on. That's all that really matters. So, yeah, that's turning on. I'll just get it back on the TV. And knock everything off my desk while I'm doing it. Okay, what do you mean you can't connect to my network? Failed? Something went wrong. What? Right, I definitely plugged in the Wi-Fi antennas. I remember doing it. But now it's not picking up Wi-Fi. The antennas are connected. What are you doing? Right, well, this video is going on a bit long. This is going to have to be something that I pick up on later on down the line. It was working absolutely fine on Wi-Fi. It picked up my network once, as you can see. In fact, more than once. It picked up my network last night and this morning. Let me just try Ethernet really quick, but I think what I'm going to do is okay, wired LAN is working. I think what I'm going to do is probably do another video because this one's going on a little bit long. It's very strange how now it's not picking up Wi-Fi and all I've done is cleaned it. But that don't make any sense at all. So unless the Wi-Fi chip is on the way out, which it could be, but unless the Wi-Fi chip is failing, it doesn't make any sense at all. So obviously, as you can see, we've got internet. You know, the internet's not down. You know, it's all working fine. It's just not picking up my Wi-Fi. So I think I'm going to do a part 2 to this because it looks like it's having some issues with maybe the Wi-Fi chip. But yeah, this video is going on a little bit too long. But the good news is I've got it working. I think I'm going to be keeping this for myself. Don't think I'm going to sell it because £130 for a PS5 is a really good price. Obviously, I've had to replace the safe bridge. So if I'd have sold that safe bridge on my online store, that would have been like, I can't remember how much they are. They're either £30 or £40. Let's have a look. So yeah, £30 they are on the online store. So it cost me £130 for the console, and it cost me £30 for a safe bridge. If I have to put a Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip on there, that's another £40. So £200 all in if I have to replace the Wi-Fi chip. There's something strange there. I'm going to test this in the house. So I'm going to put it back together. I'm going to test it in the house, see if it picks up Wi-Fi in the house. There could be something interfering or something. It's really, really strange because obviously, you know, it was working fine. All I've done is cleaned out the flux on the south bridge and cleaned the liquid metal. But I do need to give it a full test anyway, so I will give it to my eldest and he can play a few games of Fortnite, make sure it don't overheat or anything like that, make sure it doesn't crash. And yeah, I'll just leave him to test run it while I'm getting on with other things because I do have other work to do. So with that being said, I will leave something here. If I do end up doing another video, I'll leave something here. If it works in the house, I'll screenshot it. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Huge shout out to Joey. Thank you, Joey. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sending this to me or for selling this to me. And yeah, I'm glad I could at least get it working. I don't know what's going on with Wi-Fi, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. So if you do enjoy this type of video, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.